Okay, my darlings. Hello, good morning. Happy Monday. It's May 11th, 2020. Please mute yourselves. And this is my formal announcement to let you know that if you unmute, your name and possibly your picture will come up on the recording. And the recording is going to be put on Facebook. So don't do that. Actually, your name doesn't. The name doesn't come up in the recording, but your face may. So you can't hear the presenter? You can't hear me? Can everybody else hear me? Let me hear from you. Go ahead. Just chat. Use your chat.
I can hear.
Okay, thank you. So please chat. You can chat. So Barbara, somebody could respond to Barbara and just say it's a personal problem. Nothing personal intended. This is part 2 of Addict America, the Lost Connection. And the concepts that I presented in part 1, I'm going through the first bunch of these slides, I had to do with the concepts of addiction being an overall condition. It's not about being addicted to any one particular drug other than stimulation. And that the motivation, the underlying motivators of addiction are a need to escape from pain that's caused by the trauma from our families of origin and the messages we get from childhood. So anyone who wants more about that, who wasn't here for that particular presentation, can certainly, when I post it, I think I'll be posting that one, or else I'll just re-offer it, because I really want to be able to have these available to everyone and still respect people's confidentiality. And so, this is me. These are my books. Anyone who's interested in taking any of my programs to get various certifications or get a PhD, I hope you will do that. So, and I hope you will use if you like these presentations, then please get the books, because those are great resources then for both you and your clients. You know, that's how all of this came into existence. So Addict America, the Lost Connection, and my Pocket Therapist, 12 Tools for Living in Connection, which actually are a lot more than 12. And then we have our various schools, and I always like to throw in my bug, just because that's special. So we went through a lot of this, and we're going to work our way down to part 2, and there we are. So part 2, this is how far we got the last time. As I said, I can make the first part available to you. And we're looking at recognition and treatment. So we're building on this idea of, again, addiction being an overall state of being, a place that people live, where they are living in disconnection from each other, from themselves, and from the universe, from the universal life force, higher power, God, whatever you want to call it. And so what can we do with that? What's the practical part of that? Once we get it, and a lot of my time, which is why I wrote the books, just so to help not have to explain it to every single client in such depth. I give them my books, and then they start getting the hang of it, and then we can talk about it more. So what do we do once we understand the process? What do we do with that? And I'd like to just say for a moment, if we back up here, oops, no, it's not on here, sorry. So recognition and treatment. Irrational thinking and behavior. So this goes along with CBT, think about it, or REBT. We have the way we think leads to how we feel. The way we feel leads to how we act. If we are in an addict state, then the way we think, such as I'm stressed, which personally I have been a bit stressed the last couple of days because of circumstances, because of external circumstances. I've been a bit stressed, and I've had to take myself in hand and say, okay, what are we going to do with this? Because stress, before I have a chance to think about it, leads to, or the stress is the feeling. So what's the thought that leads to that? And that's where I really have to work at that. So if I'm feeling stressed, which leads to acting out, which leads to anger, which leads to irritation, which leads to disconnection from the people around me. And that's been happening. That's actually been happening to me the last couple of days. So now I need to slow it down, back it up, and say, well, what are my thoughts? What's really causing me stress here? And what's causing me stress is the thought, well, I'm out of control. I'm not in control of what's happening. I can't handle it. Maybe I'm not good enough. Little of that slips in. So I need to identify those thoughts so that then I can use all the other skills and interventions that I've practiced over the years, and maybe do some eye movements and EMDR. And that's one of the first things we're going to do in our approach to addiction. I have the word why up there, just because why is one of my bad words. And whenever anyone says why do I do this? Why does this person do this? This makes no sense. It's irrational thinking and behavior. Why are they doing it? The answer is addiction. They're addicts. They're in an addictive state. So it's a nice go-to when people are asking why, and you can get really caught up in a lot of, trying to make it rational, trying to make sense out of it. And the bottom line is you're in an addictive state. That's the answer to why. Unless you're asking why is the sky blue. But usually when people are asking why, it's about something irrational. It doesn't make sense. When you put it in this addiction model, it makes sense because the person is going for something else that's not quite so obvious. So hopefully that'll become more clear as we go today. Here's our chicken and the egg. I like this. So this is what I was talking about. So in addition to the stress, we create the stress that allows us to act out. So part of our interventions, today we're talking about interventions. What do we do with this? So one of the things we do is as soon as someone says, I was so stressed that I acted out. I was so stressed that of course I drank. Of course I used porn. I did something that was addictive. I even got angry. I lashed out at the people around me. Okay, that's what I do. So we have the feeling that leads to the behavior, which the behavior is stimulating the addict brain, the pleasure and reward system in our limbic system, right? So that's giving us our hit. Remember, addiction isn't so much, we think about it as the pleasure centers of the brain. It's all about feeling pleasure. It's getting high. But the limbic system doesn't really differentiate what's pleasurable, what's not. It just recognizes stimulation. Generally, stimulation is pleasurable, but not always. So anger to the limbic system is just stimulation. It's addictive. So everybody, and feel free to chat with me. The chats will not be part of the YouTube. They won't be going out in public. So chats are completely personal. So I'd love to, since I'm just looking at myself here, I'd love for you guys to chat a bit and any of your thoughts or feelings about any of this. So what we're going to do as an intervention when we're working with people is as soon as someone says they were so stressed, rather than help them look at how to manage stress, that's what a lot of therapists do. Come on, how many of you do that? Give me some feedback here. How many of you, when put on your treatment plan or otherwise, make it an intervention to help people deal with stress? Like teach them meditation, teach them breathing techniques, and I'm not opposed to them. They're in my book, like as things to do. But how many of you say coping with stress? You put down how to effectively cope with stress. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Good. I'm glad you're giving me that feedback. Yes, of course. Here's what I would like you to do. Instead of helping people cope with stress, we need to get to, that's like saying, here, take an aspirin. When you say, practice this breathing technique the next time you get stressed. What I would like you to do is say, how are you causing the stress? What is the thought? Thought that leads to the feeling of stress that leads to the acting out. What is the thought? So see, this is that circle. So you can imagine the circle, the chicken or the egg. And I just gave you an example of that, the way my thoughts, and they're going to go to your family of origin stuff. You know, what messages did I get in childhood that it doesn't matter that rationally I know I'm an accomplished person, I know I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, yeah, I make mistakes, and I'm still a good person. You know, I know all this stuff with my prefrontal cortex. So the irrational part is that I still default to those old messages. And that's what we want to get in touch with. So, and then that takes us back to why? Because it lets us act out. So we have someone who's an alcoholic who wants to drink, or a porn addict who wants to look at porn, or a gambler who wants to go to the casino, or online betting, whatever it is, or a shopaholic who wants to shop. And they might be trying, I'm not going to do it, I'm not going to do it, I'm not going to do it. I know this is bad for me, I know this is bad for me, but oh, I just had such a bad day, or we're having to be home with COVID, or this person pissed me off, or the traffic is really bad. Oh my goodness. Right? All these things that allow them to feel stressed. And that's the addict brain. So now what really is going on? So we both identify the thought and also acknowledge the why. Why do you think these things, and why are you getting so stressed? Because you're an addict. And your addict brain wants you to act out. Okay? So instead of going to that immediately helping someone relax, we're going to help them do that. We're going to teach them those strategies. That is part of recovery. But we want to lay this groundwork that it's not just keep putting that Band-Aid on. It's about first acknowledging I'm creating my own stress with my thoughts from childhood that allow me to act out, that allow me to light up a cigarette to get my fix. Okay? Does that make sense to everybody? Let me know if it does, doesn't. Okay. So this is where now we bring in our serenity prayer. And I think I would like all the world to live by the serenity prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. So everything that was happening, that was stressing me out over the last day or two, for the most part, there were things I can't change. The things I could change, those I've been trying to do. What can I change? What can I change? So the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So when we make a decision to say, I want to live in recovery, then I'm going to be educated about what my brain is doing, and then I'm going to practice living by the serenity prayer. So we're looking at locus of control. What can I control? What can't I control? Everything that I can't control is outside of me. And when I allow those things to control me, I'm in an addictive state. When I allow them to just wash over me, do what I can control, take it as far as I can, and then just say, okay, no, I'm in a recovering state. I'm in a connected state. So we can also frame this as disconnection and connection. So I'm telling you, practice this, you will see everything can be reduced to this. So here's make sure you stay muted, please. And how do we give away power? Well, and again, and why would we give away our power? Well, what's the answer to why? Because we're addicts. Okay, so when I can say she made me so angry, then it's not my fault that I'm taking a drink or looking at porn or whatever else I'm doing or getting angry. It's not my fault. That person made me. You gave me no choice. He made me so sad. They made me, you see. So part of this whole, the interventions, the treatment part of this is paying attention to words. these words that we use so casually all the time in everyday conversation, we need to be attuned to them and grab them as soon as they come up. So this happens all the time. Sometimes people argue with you and they'll say, well, what's wrong with trying, because this goes the other way, I want to try to make someone happy. Okay, do I have the ability to make someone happy? No, I do not. I don't. I might like to, I might like the people around me to be happy, but can I make them happy? I can't. So you can argue that way or say, well, wait a minute, what about, okay, you're in a committed relationship. You're with a partner. Again, it's not about you want to make your partner happy. It's you would like your partner to be happy. And then we look at how much control do we have over that. And we really have none. What we do have is we're coming from that place of connection where I would like my partner to be happy. And my partner can let me know those things that would make him, allow him, see how easy it is to slip into those words, that would allow him to be happy. And then I can choose to do those things or not. And then we can make some decisions about our relationship based on that. One of the things that comes up when I'm doing couples counseling is when we have these people that will say, whoa, somebody just came on and is not muted. Please mute yourselves, my loves. Let me pull that open so I can mute everybody. There we go. That's power. I have to multitask here. There we go. I will ask when we have couples that are going at it, if we're working with a couple and they're really going at it, and they're accusing the other of making them mad, making them pissed off, doing this, doing that to piss them off. Okay, and do you really think they're doing that on purpose? Do you believe that that person is deliberately trying to make you mad, or deliberately trying to make you unhappy, or to deliberately hurt you? Do you really believe that? Usually people say no. Okay, then let's look at what's really happening here. If they're not trying to do it on purpose, then what's happening that you're getting hurt, angry, sad? And what are you telling yourself about their behavior? Because if that's not their intention, then it must be something you're telling yourself. It's your story. So if my husband comes home late for work and he didn't call me, okay, did he do that to piss me off because he knew that I had dinner ready on the table and that I was there waiting for him? Did he do that on purpose to harm me? No. So what am I going to say? So now any way that I respond to that, if I'm hurt, angry, sad, is really about me. You see that? Now, if I say, you know what, I think he does do that to piss me off, then when I hear that from a client, my next question is, what on earth are you doing with this person? Okay? Why would you be with a person who's deliberately harming you and trying to hurt you? What's our answer? Everybody all together? Because you're an addict. And that allows you to disconnect. It allows you to be in a state of stimulation. Okay? Is this making sense to everybody? And this is where couples come together out of an equal fear of intimacy. Now, I decided I'm actually going to be doing another workshop because I like doing these hour workshops. Everybody seems to be, people are coming, so I'm going to keep it going. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one right now, although it's always good to emphasize it. But I'll be talking about this. I was stringing it out into an hour coming up. So briefly, couples come together out of an equal fear of intimacy. So picture little kids growing up, taking in these messages. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthwhile. I'm unlovable. And so now I have to protect myself against the world. I'm going to, I'm hiding. I can only come out and connect so much. I can only get so close to another person. So energetically, I'm only going to attract people who are also only able to get so close. So we could have people out here, we could have people here, but there's something preventing full connection. Okay? So, and of course, the way that ties in with addiction is the energetically, spiritually, we want to be connected. We are connected. We actually, the Higgs field, like you hear about the Higgs boson. I'm writing more about that later, so stay tuned. The Higgs field is that energy that connects us all. It's a universal energy. It's physics. So there's this universal, so we're all connected. But what happens is we put up these barriers in our minds because we're fearful. That's our limbic system. I'm fearful. So I want to stay a certain way apart. And then, so I'm going to be attracted to people who are also comfortable there, which means that even when I try to get closer, they're going to be pulling away. And then we're doing that dance. So what we do, because we have our prefrontal cortex that says, no, I want to be close. I recognize spiritually and I want to be in connection. I want to feel connection. And so what do? But we're always trying to control it. So we use pseudo-intimacy. We create situations where we're trying to connect with people where it looks like we're connected. I've worked with sex addicts who have mistresses and they're trying to convince me that, listen, I didn't go out in the street and find these people. No, they came to me because they identify as sex addicts. Okay. And when they come to me and say, well, I'm behaving addictively, I think I'm a sex addict, whatever. But then they immediately try and tell me, well, but I'm not really a sex addict because, I've had this one mistress for 5 years. I love this woman, right? As the story unfolds, well, one thing, you're married. So there's a built-in barrier to intimacy. You can't be fully connected when you're already in a committed relationship with another person, right? And by the way, my mistress is an alcoholic. Okay, so she has her barrier to intimacy because she's an addict. Addiction is a barrier to intimacy, okay? Because your addiction is always going to come first. Getting that stimulation need met, your drug of choice is always going to come first. You can't fully connect. And, and so there's it's a pseudo-intimacy. Because, the reality is, if you were really in love with and connected with this person you've been carrying on an affair with, you would connect with them. You might tell your wife, hey, let's be polyamorous. Are you into that? Or you might leave your wife and be with this, but no, we go along and along and along. So aren't some people more intimacy avoidant than others? Yeah, but not in a relationship. You see, so every individual in the world has their own level of being intimacy avoidant. What I'm saying is energetically, we're going to attract the people who have the same level of intimacy avoidance that we do. We just do. So, however, and it looks different. We can have two people who one is an addict. Let's say one is a sex addict. This is what I see a lot of in my office. And I put this in the book, Addict America. So I had this couple. I actually had this couple in front of me. They come to me. They're heterosexual couple. He's the addict, the sex addict. She's the partner. They come in, they're doing their work. He's working. See, he has the obvious problem. So it's real easy to make him the identified patient. He has an obvious problem. He got caught, whatever. He's now in therapy. He's now had his come to Jesus moment, if you will. You're okay with that? Where his wake up moment to say, I have a problem. I have lost almost everything. I need help. Okay, so he's hit that wall. He's getting help. He's working his recovery. He's been incorporating everything. He's learning everything. He's soaking up recovery. And what happens is she's still keeping him at arm's length. Now, granted, his behavior has traumatized her. His behavior has hurt her horribly. But when she's sitting there in front of me after a period of time, and she's still sitting there in front of me saying, I want to be closer to him. I want to be more in connection. I want to be more intimate. Okay, that's what you want. And then I say, would you two of you be willing to do a little intimacy exercise that requires you, turn, face your chairs to each other. And I'm going to help you talk through some things and do this little intimacy exercise. And I thought she was going to tip her chair over. She pushed back so hard and fast, her chair almost tipped over backwards. And she said, no, I don't want to do that. So she appears, she's been hiding behind the addict, her fear of intimacy, she's been able to keep hidden. And this is what happens with people. One, it's right out there. But the other one, they get to hide. They get to be more in denial and say, oh, I'm right here. I'm ready. It's not my fault we're not closer. It's yours. But when that person is able to be closer, if the other person's not doing their work, they're going to be pushing away. Does that make sense? Did I answer your question on the chat? So then we look at getting these pseudo-intimate relationships because we have a need for it. So we have a need for connection, we have a need for intimacy, for getting together. But addicts will choose ways that they can control. If you have a mistress, you can always leave her. If you have, if you're, whatever it is you're doing with people, the pseudo-intimacy is really about people. If you're doing something online, you can always turn the computer off. You can walk away from it, right? If you're going seeing prostitutes, whatever it is you're doing, if you're flirting with somebody at work, you still have the control to turn it off, more so than with a spouse. Okay, spouse requires a deeper level of intimacy that's not so easy to control. So what happens is with sex, and of course I'm a sex therapist, so I have a lot of people that come in and say, oh, we want to get back to where we were. When we have people that are having problems with sex and sexual intimacy, because remember, sex is one expression of intimacy, but they'll come in and they say, we want to be closer like we used to be. The thing is, they probably weren't. What they were in the beginning is they were highly sexual and they felt like they were really connecting. Because you know how it is, hopefully you've experienced that wonderful flood of emotions and closeness and all when you're attracted to someone and having sex. But then in the beginning of a relationship, you haven't developed that deep love. What happens is, so now you have the emotional disconnect, but you're closer sexually. As you're going along in the relationship, you become emotionally closer. Your love deepens. You really start getting closer. So something has to give. And what is it? It's the sex. And then people says, hey, we want to have this. People say they want to have this great sex. And then that's when I will say, let's look at, instead of having sex to be intimate and to feel connected, let's work on the connection and the intimacy so that then sex becomes just one way of expressing that intimacy. Okay? So it's not about, if you have erectile dysfunction, it's not about the penis. If you have any other problems with intercourse, it's not about that. It's not about how you do sex. It's not about performance. Performance is another way. As soon as you say the word performance, and I want all of you to be sensitized to this word. When you hear someone talk about sexual performance, is that really what you want your sex life to be, is a performance? You're not dancing for your partner and getting paid, unless you're doing that as a role play. Okay, you're not engaging a sex worker and paying that person. That's a performance. You're paying for a performance. Between two emotionally intimate people, we certainly don't want to be a performance. And if it is, then there's your unconscious way of disconnecting. So again, these words are so important. Pay attention to the words that are so commonly used but carry such weight. When I'm performing, I'm in my head. I'm like, how am I going to do this? And let me hone my craft and let me practice my technique. And that's the disconnect, because now I'm focused on me. I'm not attuned to, I'm not really present with the person. Sometimes you'll hear actors will say, when they're in front of an audience, and you hear stage actors say that this is what happens with their audiences, they feel more of a connection to the audience than you do making a movie. And then you have some actors will say, you know, their performance varies according to the audience. And then some of them will say, there's that wonderful night where I transcended, the audience and I became one. And I just lost myself in the performance. I was no longer performing. So does that resonate? Yeah, give me feedback. Give me feedback. I gotta feel the connection, folks. Give me the connection. So this was a picture I took just to illustrate. Thank you, thank you. The push-pull. I actually set up a couple of my friends here to do this push-pull, because there's the come here, come closer, but stay away. So I was trying to get them to do that. She's pulling him closer and then pushing him away at the same time, which confuses the hell out of people when they're in these relationships. And you might have had this, but this is how we try to manage that connection. And for all of you who work with couples, I know you've experienced this, where you're doing therapy, the couple starts getting closer, everything's working, and you're like, yeah. And then all of a sudden they come in and say, oh, we had this huge fight. We had, you know, they just pulled away. It was like all the therapy we've done in the last couple of months just went down the toilet. Come on, who's experienced that? Somebody, I know you have. Okay, there you go. Thank you. Yeah, of course you have, because that's what people do. So that's what they do. And so, of course, you know, if you've done this for a while, you've learned to tell people on the front end, hey, you guys are going to sabotage your good work. The way I present that is you're going to sabotage it by your limbic system is going to feel fearful as you get closer. So we need to use the prefrontal cortex to say, this is going to be uncomfortable. I recognize this is going to be uncomfortable. And I'm going to push through the discomfort. And we're agreeing as a couple, we're going to push through that discomfort in order to connect, because this is what we want. So I always, whenever I see a couple, the first thing I do by the end of the session, I say, what's our intention here? It's our intention. And when they say we want to be closer, we want to connect, we want to be more intimate. Okay. Then from this moment onwards, every decision you make, every behavior that you do, you say, is this disconnecting or is this connecting? So it doesn't, there's no justification for anything that disconnects. It's not, well, but she said this and he did that. No, it doesn't matter. If that disconnected you, then you don't go there. You don't go there. We're all about connection. So pseudo-intimacy, where we see this, is people who are always getting involved with people that don't live in their hometown. They get into online relationships. They get into obvious addict relationships. They fall in love with addicts. They get in love with they fall in love with married people. Okay, these are all some of the more common ways that you're going to see where people are engaging in pseudo-intimacy and control. So they get to blame something external I say, well, I'm ready for a serious committed relationship. It's just that I keep meeting guys that live out of town, or I keep finding myself attracted to women who are, you know, want me for my money, you know, just whatever stereotypes you want to go to. I was just looking at an article, of which there are hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands. And I was kind of surprised that it's coming up today, but it's one of those catchy topics. How to meet the right person. In this case, the article was, how can a woman meet the right guy? And I'm like, really? So, as if, you know, there's some right formula, something, some magical way or something, some checklist. If I just do these things, I'll meet the right person. And what my perspective is it's not about having a checklist. It's not about putting yourself in the right place at the right time. It's not any of that. It's that energy. It's that when I am capable of being completely intimate with another person, that means I've done my own healing. I've removed all my barriers to intimacy, that all the things that have made me fearful. I've gotten past my fear. I can just be present. I can be open. I have nothing to fear. You can't hurt me because I'm really good with myself. That's who I'm going to attract. That's who's going to come into my life. So I don't have to try. I don't have to look. I don't have to get on the right dating sites. I don't have to go to the right places. I don't have to make myself different in any way, except just how do I want to be and how am I not living in harmony with my own values and with the kind of person I want to be. So those articles are catchy because they make people feel like, oh, okay, I'm feeling hopeless and lost and I just want to meet somebody. And there's our drug seeking. I want someone else to make me feel better. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with wanting someone in your life to share your life with. What I'm suggesting is you help for yourselves, for the people you work with, people around you. Look at the energy you're putting into that. And is it drug seeking? Is it for your addiction? Is it for your recovery? You know, am I good with myself and I would like to be someone else who's good with themselves, and then we can grow and enhance our lives and, you know, a nice life together? Or am I just unhappy because I'm doing this alone and I need somebody and I'm not feeling lovable, I'm not feeling good enough, and if I just had somebody, then I'll feel good enough and then I'll be okay. You see? So I hope that makes sense, that difference, the pseudo-intimacy and the intimacy. And the, you know, trying to control drug seeking versus just being okay with yourself. The, you know, what you're bringing into relationships. So I've already talked about this. We're always trying to control the level of intimacy. And this is where, again, people will start doing things to be closer, but if they're not really aware of what's going on in the limbic system that's pushing them away to their comfortable distance, they're going to sabotage themselves. So here's that. I love transactional analysis, going from the parent-child. And so your life script, what life scripts do you have that you're living out that are making you try to control what's going on around you, that have given you the messages about who you are as you're moving through the world? And often, as you're putting out that energy, what do we have? We'll often have a couple in front of us where one of them is saying, you always treat me like a child. And the other is saying, well, if you didn't act like a child, I wouldn't have to treat you like one. Okay, come on, who's had them? Let me hear some yeses out there. You know what I'm talking about. All right, So if you remember from your transactional analysis, you actually have 3 ego states. You have parent, adult, child. And so when you're communicating parent to child, either way, that's where you're going to get this power differential. Okay? I get people like this. They're not connecting, are they? So can I control the other person? Well, stop treating me like a child. Now I'm trying to control the other person. Let me pull that back on myself. What can I do? I can choose to respond as an adult, no matter how you treat me. I can choose to behave as an adult and respond as an adult. And vice versa. The other person who's acting like the parent can also choose to communicate from an adult state. And in adult state, so the parent and child states are back here in the limbic system again. They're those ways that we have learned to behave. And it's from the addictive place, it's a way of maintaining that distance and trying to control things we can't control. So when we bring it back to what can I control? I can control me. And so you can talk to me as if I were a child. That's your problem. That's whatever your thing was from childhood. I can choose to respond as an adult. And that means I'm going to be rational, and I don't need to be upset or stressed or angry. I'm just going to respond. Now, as I do that, it may well be that then you will respond to me as an adult, but I'm not doing it to make that happen. I'm doing it because this is how I want to be. So there's a bit of a difference there. One is codependent and the other is recovery. So as we're looking at all the different ways people, again, that addiction as an umbrella thing, it's about stimulation. It can be anything: texting, gaming, porn, social networking, sexting. So our technology is creating addicts. It's really easy. It's there, it's accessible all the time, and it just ties right in. And even if you had a reasonably happy, healthy childhood and you have good self-esteem and all, it's so easy to go down this rabbit hole, isn't it? And then hopefully, though, if you already have a good foundation, it's a little bit easier to get out of it. But I like that little cartoon, and I actually got permission from whoever owns it to use it, so that's fun. So I can use it freely and not violate copyright laws. How do we know? Well, sometimes we have people who resist all of this, who the idea of giving up control. I'm kind of moving into like the step 1 in the 12 steps, give up control. And don't want to go to, again, I'm talking about interventions. So remember, this whole today's hour is talking about interventions for people who are in an addictive place. And when we're trying to control everything and saying, no, I can do this, and we're white knuckling it, and then the people who just say, no, I don't need a higher power, or they're really resisting that. John R. is someone who has a lot of recovery, and he said to me one time, you just ask this question, which of these statements is true? I am the greatest power in the universe. I am not the greatest power in the universe. And I love that. So if you think you are the greatest power in the universe, you're probably not going to be in therapy with me because you're a psychopath or sociopath, and you're not voluntarily entering therapy. But everyone else is going to say, I'm not the greatest power in the universe. So if I'm not the greatest power in the universe, that means there is a higher power, a greater power. And didn't that just get simple? So that is yet another tool, another intervention. And I know when I went to school to be a therapist, and it seems like more in the past, not so much now, but maybe still some now, there's this shying away from anything that has to do with God, higher power, unless you're working in the field of addiction. And I think that's does a disservice to ourselves and to our clients, because we're spiritual beings. we have that universal connection. So whatever we want to name it, it's part of us and it helps us. It's such an enormous help and strength to us as we move through our daily lives. And I know for me, just sitting in sessions with one of those clients that I'm finding it difficult to help, to counsel, to guide, to even be with, that's when I am not the greatest power anywhere, not even in this room. So there's a greater power, so I give it to God. I call it God. Sometimes I call it other things. Doesn't matter. But that's when, just in counseling, you know, I'll be looking at this person and thinking, I don't know what to do. Oh yeah, I do. I give this person to God. And just giving up that power, now I can be centered again. And that's usually when the answers will come to me. They'll be like, okay. And then it just flows out because it's no longer about me. Now I am present. I'm not worried about how good a therapist I am. You see, so that's how we move from an addictive place to a recovering place, a disconnected place to a connected place. So this, that was just a clip from my, I don't know if the whole thing is there. I don't think I shared the sound, so you're just going to pick it up from the speakers, but I'm not even going to play it right now. I played it for you last time. But this was my the video, the 1 minute video for my book. And it just talks about moving from a place of addiction where our addictive lives become normal, where stress becomes normal, where too much traffic becomes normal, where we're just, I think we're realizing this in this time of COVID, that a lot of people are gaining that awareness that, wow, being without a lot of these external stressors, we're realizing how out of control things have gotten. We're also experiencing a lot of stressors in that, you know, people are not making money and lose, you know, I mean, just, you all know, we're inundated with it 24/7. So anyway, we can watch this maybe towards the end or something. I don't even know if this isn't even the whole, is that the whole video? No, it's only 2 seconds of it. So I love talking about selfish or selfless, which is which. Here again, when we're part of our interventions, when we're helping people understand the different, what's codependent, what's just being connected, they're paradoxical. It's all paradoxical. What I do for me, what I do for you, it's all about the energy. And a lot of times what happens is I might be doing something for you that looks selfless, but why am I doing it? Here's our why. Am I an addict? So am I doing something for you because I want to look good? I want to appear competent or generous or something else? Am I doing something for you because I want to control you? So if I do something for you that I think is going to make you not angry with me or make you like me, then now I'm back in my own head. I'm using you to make myself feel better. So I appear selfless, but it's really selfish. Now, if we're in the same space together, if we're really present, and if I'm recognizing how connected we are, then I do something for you and I experience the pleasure that you feel. I don't do anything that's going to hurt you, because if you feel pain, I'm going to feel that pain. And when you think about it, that's really why a lot of us, you know, we experience all kinds of things where empathy, you know, we experience what the other person feels. And thank goodness, because it keeps us from really doing more harm than we we might otherwise do a lot more harm than we already do. So this is why psychopaths and sociopaths and even narcissist personality disorders can cause harm, because they don't have that sense of connection. And so they just harm with no awareness of the harm they're causing, because they don't feel it. So when we're in connection and we feel, then I'm going to behave in a way, for the most part, that I can feel your joy, or I can feel your sadness, or I can feel you, and I can share those things. But I'm not going to deliberately, I'm not going to deliberately cause harm, and I'm going to try and do things that you'll feel happy just so I feel it. So then I'm feeling happy. So is that selfish, or is it selfless? So that's a fun little concept to play around with your clients, for yourself. What's the motivation in what you're doing? Is somebody, giving to the poor because it's going to get them into heaven? Or are they giving to the poor because they really feel the pain of being hungry? When they see someone who's hungry, they feel it. So selfish or selfless, which is which? So the paradox of control is giving up control in order to get it. We're back to the serenity prayer. And this idea of vulnerability, another paradox. If we're connecting, I'm saying I'm capable of full connection, full intimacy. I'm opening myself up. It kind of says I'm opening myself up to being hurt by you, that you could hurt me. And yet, if I'm good with myself, I know who I am, I'm okay with who I am, you can't hurt me. You can momentarily hurt my feelings. I'm human. But for the most part, you can't hurt me, because I'm good with myself. Does that make sense? So vulnerability is, again, it's a paradox. You can say, well, I'm really open, capable of intimacy because I'm completely vulnerable, and yet I'm coming from a place of invulnerability. But it's not a protected, walled off. It's I'm really open. I have no secrets. I have no shame. These are ideals. I recognize that. But I'm certainly not saying that I've aced all of this stuff. But I try to be aware of it. So these are things that we can also say to our clients. And again, it helps with if we're working with couples and they're talking about opening themselves up to being vulnerable to their partner. Well, you need to be coming from a place of trust that your partner isn't going to deliberately try to harm you. And also that your partner really can't harm you. If they say something harmful, it's more about them and what are they doing to close off, to disconnect, to protect themselves. So these are ways to be aware of again, it starts with ourselves, but then be aware of your couples, your clients who are in your offices, as for those of you who are therapists, and anyone who's not, whatever it is you're doing with other people, or yourself. Be aware of how this manifests. So as soon as you hear someone in your office say, this person made me angry, or this person hurt me, that's the feeling. What was the thought that led to that feeling? Where did that thought originate? And it wasn't with this relationship. It was back in childhood. So there we can start getting those boundaries. And what about this? What is this inner insecurity? What is your fear? When you get it, that I'm not good enough? Okay, and where did that come from? Well, it came from, my parents had brought home a B on my report card, and then I was, my father and my mother told me I have to work harder and I'm never going to get anywhere, and blah, blah, blah. Okay, then we do healing for that. I do EMDR with people for that. We do whatever it is you do, and it really, I think, needs to be non-talk therapy, because talk therapy is all in your prefrontal cortex, and this stuff is stored back in the emotional brain. It's stored in the amygdala, That's down there in your limbic system and with all the emotions. You're holding these memories and emotion, and that's what EMDR does. It separates memory from emotion. So, but whatever else you do, and you can also behave, you can do the behavioral part and behave as if, and start making behavioral changes, and that will have an impact on the limbic system. Another part of connection, and when we are able to connect, is and get into the other person's space and really hear them. It's get out of our own heads and really listen, reflect. The reflecting is what I hear you saying is. And then you just reflect back. Let me see if I'm getting you. What I hear you saying is. And ideally, we're practicing this in the counseling office. Sometimes we forget. And active listening goes a bit deeper because that uses the you sound, and then you insert an emotion about or because, and we get below, we get deeper than what the surface thing is. So, yeah, if my husband doesn't come home, he doesn't call me when he's going to be late for dinner, which is, by the way, just complete farce because I do not cook and he doesn't work outside the house. So total fake example, and yet so common with so many people. And there's plenty of other things I get annoyed with him about. So I can basically say, he could say to me when I'm there, like, where have you been and why didn't you call me? He could say, so you sound really upset because it feels like I don't care about you when I don't call. Oh, so just acting that out, I immediately relax. Yeah. Now I might keep going. Well, yeah, because that, but now he's joining with me. So it's not, you sound really upset because I didn't call you. Mm-mm. See, that's surface. What's the underlying meaning? You sound upset because you think I don't care about you. Because I've, so many times when I've been late before, I was out drinking or doing something else, and you're scared to death that I'm doing it again. We want to get to that underlying meaning. And finally, I think this is finally, it's going to be finally because we've got 1 minute left. The connection of suffering. Use suffering for connection. We do it all the time. We're all suffering with COVID, and look at how people are getting together. 9/11, people get together. Anytime there's suffering, people come together, they join together. And so when you say, why do people suffer? Well, there's one reason right there, not because they're addicts. Okay, caught me on that one if anybody did. But what is the purpose of suffering? How can we make meaning out of suffering? It brings us together. When we're all happy and getting along and everything's going great, we're really, we're a little more disconnected, aren't we? I find that with my clients. When my life is going really great and I'm fine, nothing's going on, and I have to make that extra push to get connected with them when they're suffering, because I'm just not feeling, it's not in my wheelhouse right now. I can remember it, and I've learned that, go there so I can be very empathetic, compassionate. But I find that if I do start to get a little smug or a little complacent, the universe smacks me down. Something will happen that will remind me, oh, yeah, this is suffering. And it's not so easy to snap out of it. Fellowship, any kind of fellowship groups. So here we are. At the end of this, I'm going to stop now because I want to respect your time. But when you go to the slide, you find all these people, Gandhi, Einstein, Ford, Martin Luther King, Douglas, all these people have Schweitzer, more Gandhi, of course, and Ralph Nader I threw in, and all these different sayings that this is just a universal thing. It's about giving. It's about turning your energy outwards to connect. And oh my God. But anyway, I have a bunch of all these exercises are in both my books. And that's about it. I am now going to stop the recording. I will stay online. If anybody wants to talk to me about anything, I'll stay online for a moment. Wait a minute, I don't want to do that. I want to stop the recording first. And